Alright, so I think I'm going to take this time to maybe give some background on the characters in my campaign, the player characters, that is. So, I'm going to briefly go over each of the main characters that I started out with, and hopefully, as I create more of these backstory videos, I'll have the opportunity to introduce the new characters that were introduced, and for you create the send-offs to the ones that either haven't made it this far, who have felt it was time for them to depart and play as new characters. So to start, we have the half-orc barbarian Farend. When you think Farend, he's a classic orc. He wears pelts. He has a great axe. He is a barbarian. I think he is the totem warrior path, but he is very much bound by orc honor, as interesting as that sounds. And I really enjoyed role-playing these tidbits where he'll more often than not attempt a one-on-one battle as opposed to getting his whole team involved and potentially injured when it could just be him against the world. He's part of the Frostjaw tribe of orcs, which have been very fun to include in my story so far. Now, Farend is one of, if not the best warrior in his clan, and because of that, he's a bit confident and a little bit arrogant. He's very willing to throw himself into groups of half a dozen soldiers just to see if he can do it. But that said, he is not, I guess the word would be ignorant of the suffering of others. He is never willing to be like, all right, let's all go out and die, but is more of, I think I can take him. Let's see if I can, and we'll leap headfirst into it. He is not without his respect for the spirits, for the gods, for nature, and for those he's seen as respectful fighters. People who fought and bled alongside him, or people who can just generally be courteous and genuine. Farend on occasion has even come into conflict with officers of the law, who at first he disagrees with, but after they explain themselves of, this is why I'm investigating you, once he realizes they're just doing their job, he tends to get a little bit more patient with them. So those are sort of the cogs working around in Farend's mind. Some of his backstory has been dipped into in the campaign, and maybe I'll get into that in another video, but for now, Farend, a classic orc barbarian, but well-meaning, and in my opinion, kind of has a heart of gold to him. The next character I want to get into that started in the very beginning of my campaign is Skamos. Now, Skamos is a very interesting character because he's a black tiefling. He's got these very white eyes, and he has this long black coat, and he wields a rifle and a revolver and a long sword, and he uses the power of devils against other monsters. He uses the power of evil against them. He's this total blood hunter, but he's ashamed of how he looks and his origins in a way. His parents never, I guess, loved him, or at least showed that they loved him, and never let him in the house for fear that company might come over and see that they had this abomination of a child. So Skamos at a very early age ran away and swore himself to a devil, the exact devil I might get into later. But ultimately what you need to know about Skamos is they are very damaged. They are hardened by the world around them. They spent the rest of their life trying to build something out of themselves into this great warrior, mercenary, but they are not above stabbing someone in the back to get out ahead. They're not malicious, but they're a survivor. if you want a physical description, just kind of imagine, we joked about this a lot in playing, Skamos looks like Jason Momoa. They are built like a truck, and more often than not, Far End and Skamos have actually tried to arm wrestle to see who would win. And so the dynamic between the two of them is very interesting. Next up, we have Morganai. Now, Morganai is very interesting because she is a Shadar-kai elf. The Shadar-kai are from the Underdark, sort of a civilization that lives beneath like the surface of the world. They don't have natural sunlight. They have creatures that exist mostly in darkness, or that delve in only like the dampest of caves. But the Shadar-kai, as a species, are almost entirely devoted to the Raven Queen, this goddess of death, not as an enemy, but death as more of a friend. Think less Hela from Thor Ragnarok, think away from that, and think more like the Deathly Hallows death, like it being an old friend and an inevitability. So Morganai is all about worshipping the Raven Queen, but she also exists as a necromancer to the Raven Queen, which is an oddity and controversial amongst her people, because a necromancer brings things that were dead back to life and uses them as like foot soldiers and stuff. So a lot of her superiors in the clergy, they don't like what she's doing, but all the same, she feels that these bodies, she's not resurrecting them, she's not bringing them back. Their souls are laid to rest, but these are simply vessels to be used. Soldiers that can exist without torturing the spirits that have already gone by. Constructs, in a way. Which is an interesting way of looking at the separation between life and death and the barriers therein. So Morganai is exploring the world right now. She's left the Underdark, and she's trying to learn about what death means to different cultures, what it means to the world as a whole. And she's met some cultures and like tribes that have been very patient with her, and there might have been a language barrier, but she's managed to understand how they see, just how they practice. And there's been other tribes where they don't like outsiders talking to her, her talking to them, and they'll like wave their weapons at her, and she'll have to get away by the skin of her teeth. Now, one of the main things Morganai has going for her is this tome that she found very early in her adventures. It's this large book of magic, long forgotten. It's hundreds, if not thousands of years old, and after reading of just a few pages, a spirit began to speak to Morganai, a spirit trapped within the book. And she later learned who it was, but I won't spoil it for now. But the tome said that it would share its power with her if she would do favors for him later on. Not like a warlock patron, but more like just like the book doesn't have that much sway over her. It's not a god by any means, but it is certainly a supernatural ally and mentor. And because of this, it has helped her with some necromancy. It's helped her create spells and do more damage when it comes to necrotic attacks. And the last of the original party is Skag, the goblin warg rider. Now, wargs are pretty much these large, mangy wolves. It's like a cross between a wolf and a hyena. You see them a lot in like Lord of the Rings, whenever the goblins or orcs are riding on these armored beasts. Those are wargs. So Skag is a tracker, an archer, and also a little bit of a rogue. Just a bit of someone who, they lived in the city and got up by the skin of their teeth, doing odd jobs and mercenary and like third story work, picking pockets and taking names. So they have a lot of like underworld connections, but they also have their origins rooted in the goblin orc like tension, because for a long time, and still even today, goblins have often been considered second-class citizens to orcs or slaves, which is why their name actually, Skag, is Orcish for runt. It's a slur used against the goblin people. So Skag has taken that name, abandoned their old one, taken this name, and he's using it as a sucker punch to his would-be oppressors, as a way of saying, hey, you're right, I am just a runt, but guess what? This runt just beat you. And it's totally wicked when he's able to pull it off. So that's the party. We have Far End, this half-orc barbarian who just wants to see his people survive another harsh winter. We have Skamos, who's looking for not quite acceptance, but looking to survive despite the damage and torture they've received. We have Morganai, who's seeking knowledge of death and culture, and we have Skag, who's just trying to get paid. And that right there is the party we started with several months ago. And hopefully the next video I make will be talking about their first adventure in the small town of Nestbreak. But until then, take care, and see you around.